we are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is P-Car Talk.
Welcome to another episode of P-Car Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm Aaron.
And we have another special guest on the show coming on later on the second half of the show, Chris from Overcrest.
Yep.
He's going to be joining us. Thank you, Chris, in advance for your time. He's also a car journalist and a photographer. And he has a really awesome 911 long hood car
Nice
we're going to talk
one.
about. Yeah. So we'll definitely talk about that, and we're happy to have Chris on the show. Additionally, we have some more 992 talk. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Frankfurt Autoshow, and a little bit more Taycan, believe it or not.
Because you can't get enough.
Yeah, it's just kind of some new information have come out with the charging system and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting. So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, let's start with the Taycan.
Okay.
So they recently got one of these Electrify America supercharger systems set out.
About time.
I don't know. Well, I mean, it's probably for a show or display. Don't get excited.
Okay. I'll calm it down.
Don't get excited over there. This isn't like there's a shit ton of them out there and we're good to go. I think this is probably like a standalone. It was an exercise for this particular thing because there's an article written for it right after it. So this was a total.
Imagine that.
Yeah. I'm not saying it was a setup, but it was definitely staged. So not saying the system doesn't operate the way it does, but it was the fact of there's an Electrify America supercharger system set up. It was almost a proof of concept.
Yeah.
So where I'm going with this, the Taycan, they ran it down to 5% battery, charged it up to 80% battery. It only took 22.5 minutes. So basically 22 and a half minutes to charge it all the way back up to 80%. That's pretty quick.
It is
To
pretty
get that
quick.
to go from 5%, so you got 75% charge in 22 minutes essentially.
Yep. Now, was that their fastest? That's the fastest supercharger they have? Because I thought there were some lower numbers quoted, but maybe that's just the housing.
As far as I know right now, that I don't know about speed wise. Yeah, I don't know about speed wise. It was just this particular article that was written on this particular one. And I only brought this one up because that's quite of 80%. So essentially you got 75% off of that in 20 minutes. Now, not everybody, we're go-getters. I don't really linger around and BS around somewhere. But, that's not to say that there's not plenty of other people over there BSing around. And, when you go to a gas station and maybe you're there for 20 minutes, I don't know, you're hitting the restroom if you're on a road trip, then you get 80% of your battery. This might make sense. I think the more challenging thing in regards to this will be to find one of these charging systems.
Not going to be at work, I'll tell you that.
Because they're just not out there yet.
Yep.
So,
Which is surprising that no one has done it, and I'm sure it'll happen. Some electric company's going to come by and do a standard type plug, and everybody's going to switch to that, and they'll be charged X amount and run it that way. Versus these companies competing with the different chargers.
yeah, I almost kind of feel, let's have a debate about this for a second because I had some thoughts behind this. So they're selling this car. It's coming out. I know the Electrify America system is not just for Porsche. It's going to be for Audi, VW. It's going to be for the VAG group. Does it feel a little bit, because the Audi e-tron is going to be coming, all these cars are coming, but the infrastructure is not there. Are they putting the cart before the horse on this one? Do you think they should have built the systems first? And I'm not saying that they won't be built by the time these things get delivered. I'm not saying that's not possible because I'm not privy to that information, so I don't know. And it may all happen. But it seems like a lot of moving parts, right? You have manufacturers developing vehicles, taking deposits on cars that will eventually get delivered. You have a whole nother system of group of people. I know that's different. They're not the same.
Yep.
Developing a system to charge all these cars across the U.S.
Yep.
when they do get delivered, so it's kind of seamless. You almost, instead of simultaneously doing them, you think you'd do one and then make sure that was good to go, and then you'd roll the cars out almost.
Well, I would think that chargers are almost a luxury. Outside of you getting charged at home. That part or that piece exists.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never even thought about it. I was thinking more of like the charging systems on a grid level with that. Not even, I know you charge them at home, but I was thinking more of kind of the utility of the vehicle to be able to travel with it, as opposed to being city locked or 300-mile locked or whatever you want to call it.
It's a pretty good distance, and I'm sure it's been analyzed to death as to how much range they wanted to start with.
I think spending $185,000 and being able to go 280 miles is an effing problem.
I would agree that there might be an issue there.
Because even if I had an ass load of money, I'm still going to have range anxiety and be kind of pissed off at that, because one of these supercharging systems is not going to be on every freaking corner.
And I think that there were talks about Porsche buying the Tesla stations or some type of rights or whatever.
Nope.
But
you think Elon's going to let that ride?
Well, I don't think Porsche would, because they want every bit of control for every part of the way for production.
Yeah, I'm just a very, I don't want to say basic, but like systematic process of way that my mind works. And
but how much longer would they want to wait till they release cars either? Like, what if you can charge them at home, and yes, you have a little bit of range anxiety.
I don't know. I think it would like help your sales, to be honest with you. But I guess since they're selling them anyways, it goes back to that maybe they just don't care.
Maybe
it's not their damn problem.
Maybe they're counting on this being really the fourth car in the line of stuff you already have being in that range, where it's not your only means.
That kind of baller, huh?
Maybe
180 grand on a Taycan just so you can drive it to around the city.
We go to Starbucks and back.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, I just, like, when I started reading this article and I saw that, even though I'm sure that wasn't the intent of the article, that's just where my brain goes. I start to think about these things. And not that prior to this article I didn't think about that. I thought about that a while ago when all of this was being announced, and all the stuff we've talked about in the past of, well, what's it going to do to the grid? And the car's smart enough not to charge too heavy, like during peak hours. Okay, well, that's fine. But I understand not everyone's going to have a Taycan, but I also understand that eventually it's going to trickle down to Volkswagen, and everyone's going to eventually have an e-Golf, or e-Jetta, or an Audi e-tron or whatever. And I know there's going to be a lot more of those. And I still wonder because I'm not an engineer, but I do know enough about sense, and I know about our grid where I live at. Hell, I turn the vacuum cleaner on at my house when the washing machine's on, and some lights dim on the certain half of my house. I can't imagine if I had a freaking car plugged in, like trying to charge, what would happen.
Yep. Pew. Yeah.
My house isn't ready for that, and my house isn't super old. I mean, it was built in 01.
Yeah.
So what's that going to do? What are some of these colonial homes going to look like when it's time for all of this to happen?
Back to candles.
It just, I don't know. I feel like we go round and round and round with this topic a lot, and it's...
So, more stations.
Yeah, I want to hear more articles written about Electrify America just installed 15,000 stations across the U.S. I don't want to hear, and I know this isn't Porsche's responsibility, so I'm not trying to point fingers at them, but I don't want to hear about articles of like how quickly my car charged. Like, I know that's Porsche's MO because they're trying to sell cars right now, but on the macro level, I want to hear for the infrastructure for our country. I want to hear stuff like, oh, Tampa just installed 300 supercharging stations. This place just put in this many superchargers. I want to hear things like that.
And you know what would be a smart thing? If you're a gas company and you know this stuff is coming, why are you not already jumping on board and putting one of these electric chargers at the gas station when people are going to come in and buy stuff anyways?
Yeah.
I don't know if that exists already. I don't think it does. I think a lot of these charging stations are set outside that type of setting. But
well, I think what's probably going to happen is, one, and we'll circle back to that, there's probably a liability standpoint when you have that kind of voltage around petrol, when you have fuel. Petrol stuff around each other.
Always in permits.
So that's one. But two, I think it maybe is a theory of the tobacco industry of they're just going to ride it into the ground. They'll ride it into the sunset because that's their product and that's what they do, as opposed to being in the business world and pivoting to another area of like, okay, this is what I'm going to go do now. instead of saying, nope, we do petrol and we do petrol products and that's it. So I can see why there's maybe not them not getting on board to that. But you make a good point, because if you're the one in the industry that's first to market that maybe folds on it, then maybe you can be the one who's the leading way.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way you're gonna, when you test the market and you get to learn all those dynamics that work with these people coming in and charging.
And then again, maybe there's another theory behind it of there's just no money in it, so what's the point? Because you think about it, like, how much can you really charge somebody? Because we've always talked about the price, especially once the introduction of the electric car has come out, how much cheaper it is to just charge the car.
Yep.
So it's if you took, let's just use the Taycan, for example. I gave you 75% battery in 22 minutes. Your bill's $3 or $5 or whatever it is.
I think it eventually creep up to gas prices just because commonality and they could do it.
Yeah, but I think on the flip side of that, maybe people will pass on it then.
I think so.
Because if they can charge at their house, or if their employer will let them charge there, why would they stop to fill there?
That's true. That's all benefits that people can think about doing too.
You know, and to be fair, we're not in that industry, so I'm sure these conversations have already been had in that boardroom, you know, at Shell and all these other places where they're like, it doesn't make sense for us to do this because we're going to have to spend billions of dollars to build this stuff out, to charge people $5 to fill their car up. How many cars do we have to fill to like make this make sense?
And how fast does it have to be? Because now 20 minutes a car, that's not exactly the same as you're doing petrol pumps.
Yeah, I think that's why they're not doing it. And that's just my personal, like, talking this out loud. That's probably, there's just not money for them involved in it.
Do you think
they're better off buying power plants, like spending the money to go buy Tampa Electric and buying them out and still let them be that Tampa Electric, but own them as a company. Because now they're funneling more power out as a grid. They probably have better success of making more money by just gobbling up power plants as opposed to building stations for people to charge at.
Yep.
I mean, you think about it that way.
So investing news on the Porsche podcast, invest in power plants while you buy your Taycan.
Yeah. Or invest in a company. Obviously, you can't compete. Well, you could, I guess. If you had the technology, I'm sure there's plenty of people that are smart out there that could do something like that. If you open up an independent company where you can, for your particular city, start small, and you can be the supercharging system for that city, where you develop those and you sell them. Maybe you sell them to the city. And now the city or whatever power plant, see, that would be the way to go. Like, these power plants should get smart where they need to, it may take money, but they'll make more money in the long run.
Yep.
If they have superchargers within their system, and if they can get out there to the point where, you know, I know Volkswagen's trying to get ahead of it, but like if they almost have a subscription based, because it would be too hard to try to charge people individually.
Like
there'd be too much too much transaction happening.
You just charge one bulk price and you could use it for
as many times as you want. Yeah. If I charged you, $200 a month, and you can charge on any of my supercharger systems anywhere in the city at any given time, wherever you want to be at, like that's a game changer.
Yep.
Because then there's people out there like, okay, that makes sense. Because then I'll just use this car all the time. And now I don't have range anxiety. I'll just use it wherever I want to use it, anywhere. Because I can charge anywhere I want. And you almost have to lock out other people where they can't pay an individual price to force people into a subscription. Where you're just like, okay, no, you can't pay individually. Sorry, your car's out of gas. Call AAA. Or, I mean, out of power. Call AAA. See ya. I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting topic to bring up because I know it kind of raveled into that, but this is, and we've discussed it before, I think it's a bigger problem than anybody's really addressing. Like no one's addressing the elephant in the room here at any point. Like and I'm not talking about like us, because we're small fries. I'm talking about at the big level, at the macro level, where people are like, look, man, what's this going to do? All this stuff is great. We're going to be great for the environment. We're going to do all these great things. And I know there's alternatives, and anything can kill you, and the batteries are bad for you. And, you know, if you go vegan, the plants are going to kill you. Like, there's always something, right? Like, there's always an alternative. But the point of where I'm going with this is no one's ever talking about, like, oh, well, Electrify America's coming. And even, you know, to poke fun at Tesla again, They promised all this stuff a long time ago when they were incepted. When they came on, they're like, you're going to be able to do this. And Tesla's been around for what, 7 years now?
Yeah. They have like 4,000 charging stations or something like that.
That's weak, man. That's weak in an emerging market. Like, how do you expect a majority of the country to get on board and charge at 4,000 places? Your answer is, okay, charge at your house. Okay, well, what happens when I leave my house?
Well, that too. I mean,
what happens when I Airbnb and you don't have a thing at your place? Now I'm plugged into the wall. Like I'm charging my phone
I didn't
in.
even think about it. Yeah.
So I get like 10% battery charge in 8 hours.
Or you take out the Airbnb.
And another podcaster made a good point, and this is a great scenario in the state we live in, and we're thinking about the people in the Caribbean. Our heart and our prayers go out to them. But that's a prime example. Like they're going to be without power for months. What happens when a natural disaster happens to your area and the grid goes down? And maybe not even the grid, maybe just the power lines go down. So the main source is still up, but it can't get you the power. And you drive nothing but electric cars at your house. How do you get around?
You're going to need like a giant phone bank. To plug your car.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. What do you do? Get back on your bicycle now?
Yeah.
When the earthquake happens in California and everybody's without power and your car was at 5% battery, what do you do? Now it's junk.
Yep.
When a hurricane hits Florida and the power goes out, what happens now? I don't know what the solution is. Is somebody smarter than me? You tell me. What, I got to be prepped? Get my car ready?
Yep. Charge it up.
So then I can sit on the interstate while I watch the battery go down?
That's true.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying, and I know it's controversial, so I'm not trying to bring up a fact of like, I'm not against EV stuff by any means, but I'm not saying I have the answers because I'm not in that industry. But what's the game plan for all that long term?
I mean, you would have to, the biggest game plan
because those natural disasters are not going away.
Exactly, but solar technology is gonna be the driving force behind all that. They're gonna have to figure that out. One, solar and battery technology together. Solar's gonna have to provide enough power where those batteries charge no matter what, but then it has to be a range where it makes sense, or a charge where it makes sense. It's only gonna take time. It's gonna take usage and
it's gonna take decades for that to get right. Because how much solar power is it going to need to charge up my battery for 75%? I mean, that's a lot of draw.
Even in Florida, it'd be a lot.
And it still has to get into the car, right? So even if you have a power plant, and I'm just speaking, I'm filling in the words. I know you didn't say this, but say you have a power plant, it has a solar field, because there's plenty of them out west. But you still got to get the power to my house. So if the power lines are down, how the hell am I still going to charge my stuff?
I meant with the car as well. Like the car.
Oh, you mean the car's drawing solar? Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I don't even know how that's going to.
Well, I mean, Fisker had did some of that, but it was just for light.
But I mean, that was garbage.
I'm not saying it was great. I'm sorry they talked about Fisker, but
no, but I'm saying that system was garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just there's not enough. You cannot get enough out of that to run the car. I mean, it was enough to like turn on the air conditioner. I mean, I could probably get a couple ferrets that can run fast enough to turn the air conditioner on.
There you go. Problem solved. Ferrets.
But yeah, okay. Enough about that topic. We beat it to a dead horse. I know we kind of went off on a tangent on that, but okay. So at Frankfurt Autoshow, they debuted the 992 Carrera 4, not the 4S. The 4S has already been out.
Yeah.
Just the Carrera 4. And they also put the Cabriolet out there for all the people that
time for winter
that want the cab out there. They have their own little cult following. There's a lot of people that enjoy convertibles. If I had an infinite amount of cars, probably one would be a topless car. But if I only have a handful, probably won't own one.
Probably a Targa.
Yeah. But anyways, the reason why I bring that kind of stuff up is, again, the debate of the car itself, the Carrera 4. So now it has a lot of grip. We understand it's a 3-liter with a turbo motor, kind of like we talked about the standard Carrera, the Carrera 2, which is not out yet.
Yep.
Actually, they released it, but it's not like out.
Yep.
That's what I meant by that. Yeah, that's what I meant. Not like being delivered, but it's been released. So for those people that are where I'm taking you on this path is if you're kind of a speed demon, we understand the modifying third-party market is very strong.
Very strong.
Where you could put some exhaust on this car, put a tune on this car, and it could be faster than a standard Carrera 4S. I wonder, is this a sneaky pick for a lot of guys that are kind of, I don't want to call them drag race guys because not a lot of Porsche guys are drag race guys. But here in South Florida, there's a lot of guys that like a lot of power. I wonder if this is going to be a sneaky pick for a lot of people because remember, there are no narrow body cars anymore. Yep. So this is still going to be a wide body car.
You're still getting that. I mean, it's like a sneaky turbo.
Yeah. So it's a four wheel drive, but it's where it's putting the power down. And you could tune that where you could really get a lot more grip than you could with the 2-wheel drive car. I wonder if this is going to be a sneaky pick for guys that are horsepower hunters.
It should be. I mean,
what are your thoughts on that?
It's got everything but the turbo badge. As far as, it has all those makings. I'm sure the turbos aren't as big, but then again, that's just an upgrade itself.
Yeah, and also has like a $50,000 less price category on it too.
$50,000, you should be able to buy a couple turbos and have them installed.
And what if you don't? What if it changes you as a class? Is what I'm saying. Like you're $50,000 is a lot. Usually, like the classes of cars jump by 10, so you've like jumped 5 classes. So if somebody who could afford something that costs, let's say this car is at 120, like with good standard, good accoutrements or whatever, as opposed to paying 170 for something. That's a massive difference. Even as strange as that may sound, somebody who can afford, maybe you're stretching for the 120. Yep. There's no way you're going to afford 170. So this is a game changer in a way. If you start to think about this car and you start breaking down the statistics and what the capabilities of it are.
It's the affordable turbo that nobody's really looking at.
Exactly. And that's why I bring it up. It's one of those like sneaky like opportunity cars. Thirsty guy, huh?
I know. Water today. It's hot outside.
But it's always hot. So that was kind of my theory with the Carrera 4. Now with the cab development, the cabriolet, what do you feel about the design looks on that car? Because it does have a very wide rear end. So there's nothing after the A pillar almost. If you take the roof off, there's no B pillar. There's nothing. It's just kind of disappears and it's a flat.
I like a good coupe line. I like it being. I don't like it convertibles of the past where it's bubbly, where it looks out of place for a sports car. Mm-hmm. So I welcome that type of thing, and it being wide is always it's cool. I guess it's less proportional to what it would be if it was just a 2-wheel drive car, but.
Yeah. I wonder if, and this is kind of off topic, I wonder if Porsche will ever, I know they're always about trying to make things as light as possible, but the car's already kind of heavy and it's bigger. I wonder if they'll ever go to the hardtop convertible option, or I wonder if that's just too much weight for them.
It's a lot of weight.
With the mechanisms and stuff. I know it's a ton of weight, but I just wonder in this modern day, how many more... let's off the cuff. We didn't think about this. I know it's kind of Johnny on the spot, but there's not too many people out there making soft top convertibles anymore, and maybe that's why they're still doing it.
Yeah, not even. That's definitely true. Thinking about it now, a lot of people are at least have an option of hardtop if they're not all hardtops, or a Targa option now. That seems to be pretty popular.
BMW and Mercedes have completely abandoned it.
Yeah.
Altogether. I think you have to go domestic. I know Corvette still has a canvas top in their convertible car. There's just not that many.
Yeah, especially they compete on that same level. Yeah, that's true.
I think Aston's doing it still.
Yep.
But I think Ferrari, all of theirs are hard tops.
Yeah, I believe so too.
So.
Yeah, I don't know why they would. I understand.
It could be like Lamborghini, where you just don't even give them a top.
Just no top.
There you go.
Well, what would you change it? If they were talking about lightness, then it would be more expensive because I imagine you.
But
need
you
to make
talked
it
about. But the reason why I bring that up, and it's not just for a gee whiz. What the hell? Why I brought it up? The point of it, you made me think about it when you said the coupe line. So essentially, you could have a coupe line with structural rigidity. Yep. If you develop that roof.
And lose your trunk. Well, where does the hardtop go? That's why.
That's probably in the back seat, which it doesn't exist anyways. So maybe you just shorten up the back seat. I don't know. And maybe that's why they haven't made one, because there really isn't a place for it to put it. Because you've pushed the engine so far forward now, there's just nowhere for it to go.
That's why you buy a Speedster.
Yeah.
In a store.
Yeah. Good point. All right. Moving on. So that was at Frankfurt. And a quick note about Frankfurt. That is, I don't like using this term, but it's kind of a dying show in a way.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot less auto manufacturers there. And some inside baseball from some of the people we talked about, one of the reasons why it's kind of that way is there's so many other little places for people to debut cars now, and prettier venues and not indoors and things like that. So perfect example, like Ferrari, Aston, Jag, they weren't even at that event. So in some of the things that were thrown around is that people are debuting more and more. And I talked about this when I went to Goodwood. They're debuting their cars, like if you're in Europe, places like Goodwood. So that's where they're deciding to do that, and that's where they're putting their dollars. I just thought that was an interesting fact that those people were missing from that event.
It makes sense from, Cars in Motion, and still.
Well, it's expensive. It's expensive for them to be there. Like, that's not free for them to be there. They have to pay.
And all the big booths and stuff they have to build, and people they have to hire, and
then the parties that go along with it, and, entertaining.
They can just get out of it by just not showing up.
That's the way you do it. We're not here. See ya. See you later. But, all right, let's move on. Next topic before we go on break and we bring Chris on. So 992, interesting, because we talked about it in a prior episode. It's only getting delivered in the U.S. recently. It's been getting developed in Europe. I mean, not developed, but delivered, in Europe. But the interesting thing where I'm about to say is I'm kind of blown away about this stat that Porsche right now is the 911 as a whole, the 992, the launch of it this year, had the biggest profit margin across the manufacturing board.
Well, that would probably be because they're not building two different bodies anymore.
That's true. I just find that to be interesting on a car that's just now getting delivered at the end of the year.
So it was hyped for a while too. So if they didn't expect to sell cars, that'd be.
They probably took a ton of deposits, so that probably made a ton of money because people probably didn't pay full. So I don't know. I don't know how this stat worked out. So to be clear, guys, I'm not talking about like this is the most sold car like compared to Corollas or whatever. I'm talking about in the class, talking about the car itself and far as profit margin. So they made 30% profit margin. So Porsche AG's profit was 30% on the car, which is kind of unheard of in the industry. And they beat out the likes like Ferrari, Aston Martin, Mercedes-Benz, to name a few. And to put that in perspective, Porsche 911 only makes up 11% of Porsche AG overall sales. Like, meaning that's like if you were to take their car sales number, like their overall, like the macro number, like we sell 300,000 cars. They only make up 11% of it. But it's 30% profit margin on those cars.
So you're saying everybody's overpaying for a 992?
That's kind of the way I saw this.
That's so well.
I'm glad you said it and I didn't. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's just the excitement behind a new 911.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think it goes to, I'm going to spin it on the positive side of things, the excitement and the loyalty to the brand that a lot of people have. So meaning if you had the new 991, anytime a new 911 comes out, you're one of those people who wants the new car.
You bundled it up. You got your Taycan and your new 992 this year.
Like there's different types of camps of people, right? There's people that want to just buy nothing but the old stuff. They want to wait for all the depreciation to happen and then they buy them. I'm one of those people.
Yeah, I like some depreciation. I'm in your camp.
Yeah, I'd rather somebody else take the hit because I don't have the bank account to take the hit. So, and I like to call that shopping smart with your money. But in all seriousness, I found that to be an interesting fact because there's so many people out there talking about how much they didn't like the 992.
Yeah.
Well, no one's going to buy it. No one's going to do this. No one's going to do that. Well, guess what, guys? It made them the most money.
Must have been the minority saying that.
And that's that's Porsche AG that 911 has made them the most money out of any of the cars they're selling. That's including all of the mall crawler Cayennes they sell, all of the Macans that they sell. The 911 has made the most money and actually sells the least amount of cars. But I do circle back to, you kind of made a good point. Are they charging way too much money for the car if they're making that much money on it?
I mean, maybe not in their eyes, because maybe there's other things we don't see happening, or that's a full retool of their production line for this car. It's a brand new car.
Yeah.
It's probably costing more now that it's starting day zero for a production versus them 5 or 10 years into a line.
It's true. It's true.
Maybe they'll be able to reduce prices as it goes on, or, I mean, it'll level out. I doubt it.
You can't do that, though. You and I are in business. You cannot do that. That's business 101.
It'll probably just get more expensive, but
that's inflation. That's what happens. Someday when we're 60 years old, there'll be a $250,000 base Carrera that exists. Maybe by that point we'll be trading, we'll be bartering. Well, maybe we won't be having money anymore. It'll just be digital stuff. I'll trade you these Pac-Man digital bits for that.
Exactly.
Anyways, so interesting talk about all those things. So let's take a quick break and let's bring Chris from Overcrest on, and let's talk some stories. Let's talk some photography. We're going to talk about his journeys. He likes to road trip his car a lot, so it's going to be a great talk. And we like collabing with guys that we're good friends with. So, they have a podcast, but that doesn't mean we can't live in the same space, right?
That's true.
So let's bring Chris on and let's take a quick break, all right? See ya. Thank you guys listening to PCAR Talk so much. We appreciate you guys so much. I can't say that enough. Please go to pcartalk.com and check that out. We have a virtual membership on there. We are on there on Tuesdays meeting with you guys. Become a virtual member. We would solely appreciate that so much. Also check us out on YouTube. We release videos on Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Help support the channel. Everything we're doing is trying to bring the community closer together. We definitely appreciate that. Also, when you go onto YouTube, if you could subscribe, maybe pass it along, make a comment, we really appreciate that. Again, circling back to pcartalk.com, there is a newsletter created on there. Please put your information in there. That way we can keep you up to date on anything that's coming forward and anything that we're going to be doing moving forward, and all the exciting things that are coming out. And again, the virtual membership is on pcartalk.com. Now back to the show. All right. Hey, we have a special guest on the show, like we said we would. Chris Clewell from Overcrest.
What's going on, guys?
What's up? Accomplished journalist. Porsche.
Who's measuring that?
Hey, full spread in 000 magazine. I think that's a benchmark.
Things. Sure. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. Awesome photographer.
Thank you.
Road tripper.
Yeah.
The best part.
Yeah. Exactly. I love that part about you. So thank you for joining us on the show.
No problem. It's great to be here. It's great to hang out with you guys a little bit more. We met at the VIP Momo thing. Is that where I met you, right?
Yeah.
So we hung out there a little bit, but as always, it's getting pulled this way and that way.
Absolutely.
It's good to finally be able to sit down and hang out.
Yeah, this was a little bit more of an intimate event tonight, so we got to spend a little bit more time together. And
Don't tell my wife.
Nice. She was like, I thought you were going to hang out with dudes.
Intimate.
You're like,
what?
Yeah,
Well,
I did go hang out with dudes.
Doesn't sound like it.
Exactly. But thank you so much, and I love what you and Jake are doing over at Overcrest as well.
Thank you. Yeah, we bust our ass on it.
I can tell. It's. I like the show a lot. You guys do a really good job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We're going to talk a little bit tonight, and for the people that don't know, we're going to get to know you a little bit more. We're kind of half of Overcrest tonight, so it's just over, not crest.
Yeah,
or
Overcrest -1. Yeah.
So, as maybe people may or may not know about you, you're love to drive your Porsche and you love taking it places. So let's embark on that journey a little bit. And why does that kind of spark a chord inside of you? And why does that really amp you up? Because offline, obviously, you spoke tonight as a guest speaker, and we had to hear you, how passionate you really were, and it really came through in your speech. Why does it mean so much to you to kind of do those things?
I think that every human being, it's kind of esoteric when you boil it down, but every human being needs to explore and experience. Mm-hmm. I think if you stagnate in your life, and if you're not out and exploring, it's a real detriment to your psyche and you as a human being. So for me, it's exploring with my car. That's what I choose to do. And it wasn't always that way. It was just kind of, A to B, go to car shows, do different things. I started working with cars with my grandpa in the garage. That's kind of where it started. But when I started driving the Porsche stuff, I started looking into exploring a little bit more and getting out on doing back roads only road trips, which is, it's about as good as it gets. You do a 60-hour road trip, you really get to spend time with yourself, and you get to kind of defragment your mind. You get to, I would say that if the first 2, 3, 4 hours that you're driving, your mind is still racing. You're thinking about work, you're thinking about your family, you're thinking about what you need to do when you get home, but after a while, everything just starts to chill.
Yeah.
And everything starts to leave your mind. It's like kind of exhaling. Your mind is exhaling slowly.
It's a car detox.
It is. Yeah. It absolutely is. It's car detox. It's a really, really good way to put it. And that exploration and being able to get out there and do that and using my 911 as a tool to take me there is kind of what it's all about for me.
That's awesome. And I don't want to tell the story, but I kind of want to lead you into it so you do tell it, because you do have a lot of adventures, and one of my favorite ones, and this embarks why you like doing what you do, in addition to how strong the Porsche community and the brotherhood is. When you were driving, I think it was to Rensport, is that correct? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And now you had a transmission problem.
Yeah.
And you can take it from here.
This is crazy. So I've put 60,000 miles on my car.
That's awesome.
In the last 6 or 7 years.
That's a badge of honor. I love that.
Knock on, this is real wood, right?
Yeah.
I've never had a breakdown, but now I've had one. Generally, I just don't have any problems with the car. The 911s are reliable. They're oil cooled. I don't have a turbo. I don't have anything that could break.
No problem there.
Except the transmission, of course. So we were doing a basically backroads only thing, me and my 2 buddies, out to Rensport. And I think we got to about Idaho. And we ended up hopping on the freeway for a little bit. And we're like, we just got to get this freeway shit over with so we can get back into the real roads.
Yeah.
And we're kicking down, we're going, and it was a really close ratio gearbox. So if anybody knows early cars, it's a 915 gearbox, but mine is rest in peace, was the early magnesium case gearbox, which has a unique ring and pinion with less teeth, and it's not as strong. Anyway, so we need to get moving. So it's super close ratio. 100 miles an hour is probably 4,100 RPMs, 4,200.
Okay.
And so we're going like 110. Just, the thing is just screaming, and we're just making great time. It felt great. And then all of a sudden I started to notice this sound. It was kind of like a tick, 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 tick.
Is it growing louder?
Yeah, and it grew, and it almost sounded just like something was in your tire at first, like a rock was in your tire. Tick, tick, no big deal. And then it was like clack, 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 and I'm like, well, that's a CV joint. Crap, I'm gonna have to figure out a way to get a CV joint. And then pretty soon it sounded like a prop airplane.
Oh no!
It was. I don't even want to make the sound. It was so terrible. It was the worst sound you've ever heard in your life in a car. And it was like calamitous. I'm like, oh my god.
I kind of remember. I think you were like posting on Instagram,
I was.
like live, and you're just like, I think my car is gonna blow up.
This is the end. And this is the end. So I ended up pulling over at a gas station. I'm like, well, I'm just gonna change the gear oil. So I was in this guy's gas station. He had this perfectly brand new concrete gas station, and I spilled.
You, buddy.
I spilled gear oil all over. It felt bad for me. I felt bad for him. It was just all around bad. So the only thing that came out was gear oil and teeth.
Oh no!
So there was teeth, not a whole tooth, but there was teeth there, and the teeth had grooves on them. So I was like, maybe those are from fifth gear, because fifth gear is, and it makes noise in every gear, and fifth gear is always spinning in these transmissions. So I'm like, well, maybe it's that. No, we put all the new gear, put brand new royal purple, which doesn't belong in there, but it's all I could get at O'Reilly, and of course it still did it. And we were on our way. We were in California at the time. And I posted to Instagram, I'm like, hey, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was trying to figure, okay, so I'm doing this story for 000 about my road trip. I'm like, okay, I'm halfway there, but my car is broken. What am I going to do? I'm like, can I call up Porsche and get a press car to drive the rest of the way home and do like this contrast with old and new, and what can I do?
Which could have been cool.
It could have been cool. And should I call Pete from 000 and find out what he thinks I should do? But I ended up just going to bed depressed, and I was just posting on my Instagram, I don't know what I'm going to do. And that was it.
I remember it was like, you're like, I'm going to die. This is over.
Please help me.
I'm stuck in the middle of nowhere.
Well, I didn't really ask for help. So I guess I just say, I don't know what's going to happen now, whatever. I woke up in the morning and 90% of my inbox was like, oh, sorry, man, bummer, that sucks, whatever. But Cameron Wayland, had a message. He's like, hey, man, I've been looking. I found you a transmission. Just get here.
That's so cool.
This was after, I forgot to mention what I did the night before. I was so frustrated with the car. I was on this road called the Lost Coast.
I'm glad you brought that up because what the hell was that road, man?
Okay.
That was terrible.
So the Lost Coast is part of the Emerald Triangle, which I don't know if you know what the Emerald Triangle is.
I don't.
Okay, so the Emerald Triangle is like a really remote part of California where they grow a lot of weed.
Okay.
And before it was legal in California, that was where a lot of weed was grown and basically distributed throughout, the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, so it's kind of like rough and tumble, redneck.
Yeah, super
like
janky
outback,
area. Yeah.
Janky area. Anyway, so there's this road called the Lost Coast, which goes right out to the ocean. And it's kind of cool at first. You're like, oh, this road kind of sucks, but it's really pretty. And there's like the trees that kind of hug the road really tight, so you're driving through the tunnel of trees, which is always great. You get this great sense of motion. And then we pull over and we're watching the sunset. And this guy pulls up in this truck. He's like, you boys better be careful. The road gets pretty bad up there. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever. I mean, have you seen?
Fine.
You don't know me.
Exactly.
Have you seen what I've done with my car? It's fucking Strawberry Road, vlogging roads. I don't give a shit.
I'm like, I've been through everywhere.
Through everything. No big deal, right? So anyway, so we leave and we drive down, and I actually ended up seeing that guy again pulled over on the side of the road in his truck. And I pulled up next to him, and he was all in black with a black cowboy hat, and he was drinking out of a flask, and he told me like this really sorrowful story about his family and stuff, and it was like, it was sad. It was like, I don't even want to repeat the story, but it was really, really sad, and the fog was rolling in, it was pitch black.
You're like, is this a movie?
Yeah, it was like this. It was just pitch black. Here was this man. It was like the perfect place for that man at that time. Was this dark road that's shitty, middle of nowhere. He's in like an $80,000 like High Sierra, whatever.
Oh yeah,
just some super wealthy ranch guy that's
feeling bad for himself.
Just hates his life. He's like some cowboy, right? Just out there. Anyway, so we're driving. My headlights are falling off. It's so bumpy
like duct tape
I'm like,
on or something.
I didn't bring any duct tape. and later on when I was at Rensport, I went to the Porsche Classic area, and I'm like, man, that Toad Hall ST has tape on the freaking headlights. Probably just for this very reason. But it was potholes. And instead of just fixing the pothole, they just poured more asphalt on it. And when that failed, they just poured more asphalt on that. And the roads are washed out.
Try, it'll work.
And the bedrock is really high there. So there's nowhere for the water runoff to go. So it just washes out the road. And and we were driving, and I look at the GPS and I go, wow, we've only got 30 miles to go, but it says it's going to take us 3.5 hours.
Wow.
I'm like, no way.
You're
No
like,
way it's going to take
right. That can't be
right. But the road was apocalyptic bad. But if it was good, it would have been one of the best roads I've ever driven on. Ever. Wow. It was so good technically, but the road surface was so bad. And eventually we're like creeping and crawling and just like, and the you go over a bump and it's like, wham, it sounds like the strut tower is about to come through the chassis of the car. I mean, the hits are so hard. And finally I just go, screw it. Yeah. I'm done. I'm done. I'm frustrated. Still said we had 2 hours to go, and I just did my best Colin McRae.
Yeah.
I just
rallied it up.
I drove the car harder than I've ever driven it before that or since. I mean, it was drifting every switchback. It was front tire off the ground. Wow. Inside front tire off the ground in the switchback.
That's how pissed off you
I was pissed. I was frustrated. I'm like, this stupid transmission. It's making it, but I couldn't hear it anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, so I couldn't hear it anymore, and I cannot believe
while your fillings are rattling out of your head.
I cannot believe that thing actually. I can't believe it made it. I cannot believe it. And finally, I'm like, all right. We went balls to the wall for like 10 minutes. How much farther do we have to go? And my co-driver Nathan was like, an hour and 40 minutes. I'm like, oh my god.
That's
so then my gas light's on, and we're in the middle of this Emerald Triangle where we're gonna get.
I do remember that too. You're like, so we're running out of gas. The car's falling apart. Like it's the end of the world.
As a writer, you couldn't plan anything any better.
No, it was excellent.
An overcoming story.
Yeah, it was excellent to write about. It's one of my, it's one of the best parts of the article is talking about that. And then the next morning is when I got the message from Cameron. And we ended up coasting down that mountain. I had so little fuel that I just turned the car off and coasted down the other side into the redwood forest. But so I called Cameron, like, dude, you got a transmission? He's like, yep, I got one. Just get here. So it was maybe an hour and 10 minutes or 45 minutes, somewhere in there. I don't really remember. It's repressed memories. because I just had to drive. And imagine what the sound was like before, and then after just beating on the car, it was so loud. It sounded like if you had a bicycle and you put a playing card in the wheel and then amplified it
But it was metal
on
metal.
stadium speakers. So what it actually ended up being was I ripped the teeth off the pinion gear.
Really?
Like 2 of the teeth were gone.
Yikes.
On the pinion gear, which that's what, if anybody doesn't know, that's what engages the differential gear, which drives your axles.
Exactly.
Okay, so all the gears were fine in the transmission, but that pinion gear, 2 teeth of 8, I think there's 8 were missing.
Yeah.
So the rattling I was hearing was that pinion gear just banging on the ring gear. And it was a hideous sound. I can't even explain how hideous it was. So I suffered, and I'm in my car. I don't have armrests in my car, so my elbows are in my thighs, and I'm just like clutching the bottom of the steering wheel, just and you're trying to mitigate your speed. Let's go a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Let's go a little bit slower.
Yeah, where's the sweet spot here?
There isn't one.
Nope.
There isn't one. So it's just all of a sudden I'm just going 90, just like I need to get there. I need to get this out of my life. It's the worst sound I've ever heard. I just want to get there. There. Please let me get there. And we made it. And there was Cameron waiting in his driveway. Cameron from Wayland Motorsports, the man.
The hero.
He's like, hey, man, I found you a transmission. I'm like, oh, my God, great. So we call up the guy that's got the transmission. It's a Mag Case 915, which is a rare gearbox.
Yeah.
It's rare.
You just have one.
It's an early car 915 gearbox.
And what are the odds in the area you need it to be in?
Here's the crazy part. Here's the crazy part. That's not the transmission I ended up getting. We called the guy up, and he's like, yeah, it's freshly rebuilt. We're like, hey, does it have a warranty? Do you have paperwork? He's like, well, by freshly built, I mean refreshed. And we're like, okay, by refreshed, what do you mean? He's like, we looked at it. I'm like, okay, man.
I just keep going down in levels where it's like, yeah, we looked at it.
That gearbox is notoriously weak, and I've got a short stroke 3.2 in the car, which is probably 230, 240 horsepower.
Yeah.
And after, at that time, probably 50,000 miles of I'm having a good time, it let go, and I just didn't want to live through that again. So we're like, I don't really know anything about this transmission. I really want to make it home. He's like, all right, well, let me call around. And he found this machine shop, and we went over to this machine shop, and sure enough, this guy had an aluminum case 915 out of like a 77 or 78 shoved on. He says, yeah, I've had it shoved under that bench for 25 years. And it looked like it had been shoved under a bench for 25 years. It was super dirty and disgusting. It had that creosote stuff all over it.
Yeah.
And it was an ugly transmission. And I'm like, do you know anything about it? He's like, I know nothing. I'm like, well, what do you want for it? He was
honest.
Yeah, what do you want for it? I think it was $3,000. And I go, how about $2,000? $3,000. How about $2,500?
Yeah.
$3,000. Wow. And I'm like, the dude knows.
Yeah, because it's Porsche.
That and what else am I going to do?
And he knew you were stuck.
I am straight up fucked.
Yeah,
right?
he knew
There's
you.
No
he knew you were done.
This guy, I didn't like him. The first thing he said, and I'm not going to name him because that would be rude. But the first thing he said to me when I walked in the door, he's like, where are you from? I'm from Minneapolis. He goes, well, how about all them Muslims up there? And I'm like, wow.
That's what you lead with?
That's what you lead with? You don't know me?
Yeah.
And of course, like, my morals are like, should I tell this guy he's an asshole?
Exactly.
Or what am I supposed to do here?
Should I go Chris Clewell on him right now?
I don't know. What am I supposed to do to this guy? And I'm like, yeah.
Chris has been thrown out of a couple places if you guys don't know.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. In my younger days, I'm a little bit better behaved now. Anyway, so we got the transmission for $3,000, which I really didn't have $3,000 at the time. I'm the guy that's like, can I buy this sub? I remember being on my way back from Luft to get my car declined trying to buy Subway. So a $3,000 transmission is like, all right, I have that much money.
I guess I'll figure it out.
I'll figure it out. So then we ended up finding out that the axle flanges are wrong, the clutch is different. So then Cameron hopped in his 356, and we drove like 2 hours to go find a clutch cable. And then the throw-up bearing that I had was total crap, so we had to go find one of those. It was like a 12 or 13-hour thing, but we got it in there. And he was the most gracious guy ever. And then he called me when we went out to dinner afterward, when the car started up, and I backed it out, and I'm like, wow. It works. It's incredible. It works. Yeah, that's always the thing. Yeah. I remember when I rebuilt my motor. I remember when I started up for the first time, I'm like, it works. Like you're some sort of mad scientist.
Exactly.
And, most people like the Porsche shops is like this black magic.
Well, there's always that butt perker moment, right? Because especially when you're doing it, you're like,
funny story.
Known to screw things up. So it's like
all the time. So I had I don't remember what I was doing, and I don't remember the details, but it was something with the oil cap that goes in the center of the case, the oil, whatever it's called, where the drain plug screws into. And there was a bunch of nuts on it that were loose. And I remember banging something, and that top fell off, and the nuts were gone.
Oh, no.
And I couldn't find them all. And I turned the motor over and over again. I'm like, where are these nuts?
Where'd they go?
Where'd they go? Oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God. And eventually I just had to start the car. So I remember just being like, my eyes squint, like, you turn the can once, it's like, the fuel pump starts going, and I'm like, okay. And I let the fuel pump run for like 20 seconds, and I'm like, run, and it worked. And I'm like, yes! It was almost the same thing.
Eureka!
It was almost but the cool thing about that transmission is we were going to put new gear oil in it, and it had brand new blue Swepco fluid in it.
Really?
It is the nicest shifting 915 gearbox I have ever driven.
That's been sitting there for 25 years.
That was sitting there. Well,
You just need to let
it's
it
just
sit.
sitting there. Well, it hasn't been used in 25
That's
years.
true.
So 25 years ago, well, he said 25 years. He's ancient. Maybe it's been there since the early 80s. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what it came out.
Maybe somebody took care of it and then put it under there and had intentions of doing something.
It's killer. It's like butter.
Is it still in the car?
It's still in the car now. And I don't have a speedometer because that's a magnetic tripped speedometer transmission. Mine is a cable, so I don't have a speedometer, which whatever. I don't care.
You don't need it.
I don't need it. I know that 3,000 RPMs is 70 and 4,000 RPMs is 80.
That's all you need.
That's all I need to know. Anyway, so we were driving out to dinner, and Cameron called me. He's like, "How is it?" I'm like, "I'll tell you when I get there." And I remember getting out of the car, and he came over, and he was bright-eyed. He was just smiling at me because he knew that it was fine. And I just gave him a hug and cried because I just didn't have the words to explain the gratitude that I had for Cameron just taking the time out of his day.
Because it was the nicest thing in the world anybody could do, right? And
cool.
It's just imagine, it's almost like in Fast and Furious. It's like we got 1 week till Drift Wars. You can't get that motor.
Exactly.
This is 2 days before Rennsport, and he's giving me all this time.
Exactly.
Are you kidding?
Exactly.
And I can never thank him enough.
And it could have been an easily thing where he looked at the message and was just scrolled past.
Just kept going.
Yeah.
Just kept
no
on
big
going.
deal.
And I would have, who knows what would have happened, but it just became part of the story. Story of my life. Story of everything.
Exactly.
The story of, all the different parts of the pieces of me and the journeys that I've been on. It's a big part of that puzzle. And I'm so happy that he got to be a part of it. And we got to do that together. And now it's friend for life.
Exactly.
Right?
Oh,
and
of course.
I talk to him sometimes. We're worlds apart now, but we talk as much as we can, and
Exactly.
it's always nice to hear or see him, and that's.
But that's what this stuff's about, man.
It truly is. Like there's two parts of this, right? Everybody's like, the tagline is always, it's not Porsche, it's the people, right? I mean, I think that's the thing that PCA uses or whatever.
The cliche thing.
So
right?
you have two things. You've got the Porsche people, which is amazing, and then you also have this tool that allows you to get out by yourself and experience the world. Nothing else. Just think of another way to see as many things as you can see while you're in a car driving across the country at 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour, whatever it is. All the things you can see, all the things that you can take in and experience, and there's no other way to do that.
Absolutely.
You can't do it in a plane. Maybe you can do it in a train, but then you're limited. You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, because I want to go over there.
Yeah, you could jump off the train.
Yeah.
But it's the car is it's the ultimate machine to be able to do that. And it really bothers me when people leave them. It's a machine, not a Picasso.
Exactly.
Get out there and use it. Take the car and all that kind of good stuff.
And a good friend of ours tonight, one of the guest speakers, Ray Schaefer, even said it. He's seen so many Concorde cars. He's been involved in Porsche almost all his life. And he even said it. The cars are designed to be driven, guys. He goes,
it's a tool. It's a machine. That's what it is.
Exactly.
I mean, it's function. Obviously, there's form, right? Mm-hmm. There's form there. It's a form and a function, not just a form. And I think some people treat it too precious. They treat it too well. I see people are like, "Oh my God, you took that car on gravel roads?" I'm like, "Yeah, look at my rear flares. They look destroyed." So what?
It survived.
Who cares?
Exactly.
Who cares? The memory.
But you got a cool story.
Got a great story and a great experience that I'll never forget.
You're like, man, that was the best road in the world because I just freaking drifted that whole road. It was just amazing.
There's a road called the Burr Trail, which is, I think it's, adding it up, I mean, it's like 8 or 9 consecutive switchbacks in like 300 feet or 400 feet elevation. It's all gravel, super narrow.
So cool.
And you get out there and you take some. So there's two ways to travel. You can either go through like Zion National Park, which is beautiful and it's amazing. It's one of the most amazing places ever in the United States to go and see. It's scenic.
I've been there. It's gorgeous.
And you get out, but you get out to some place like the Burr Trail, or you get out into Monument Valley. There's a lot less people, but you are alone. There is a solitude there when you can stop your car in the middle of the road, turn it off, get out, and just look around you and see
miles.
You're it. Yeah. You are the entire existence of the world in that moment. All that is being perceived in everything that you can see, you are the only one that is taking in any of it.
It's pretty cool.
You're the only person there, and you cannot top that.
I agree.
Sometimes you got to take risks. You got to get out and get off the main roads and just be like, hey, what's down here? A lot of times you don't find shit.
Exactly.
And the road sucks. But sometimes you find the most amazing places and meet the most amazing people. Like I met this waitress in the middle of nowhere, and she looked like she was the prom queen 40 years ago, and she was the most chatty Cathy woman ever. And I really enjoyed talking to her for that 10 minutes when she brought me my cheeseburger.
Yeah.
But I never would have met her if I just would have taken the freeway all the way out somewhere.
Absolutely right.
So I know life is hard. I know life is busy, but everybody has to take the time to slow down. Especially, everybody that's listening to this is a car guy. You're a Porsche guy. Just do it. And a lot of people are like scared to be alone. They don't want to be alone in their car. They want to bring a co-pilot, which is fine. But take the risk. Go do it. Go somewhere. Just take 2 weeks off and just go drive across the country. And just, even if you just put in your GPS, avoid highway.
Exactly.
Just do it. Yeah. It's amazing.
I agree. Go with your significant other, or go by yourself, or something, like make a trip out of it. Make an adventure. Like have no roadmap. Just say, hey, we want to end up here. However we get there, we'll figure it out.
And you will figure out. It's not like we're in... This isn't Venezuela,
exactly, right?
When I was in college,
you don't have to machete your way through a jungle.
No, you're fine. You're not trying to get through the Dorian Path to Dorian Gap. When I was in college, I was 21 or whatever. I came home, I quit because I can't do college. Anyway, so my grandpa flies out. We bought a Mercedes 380 SE, just like I think it's like a W140. I don't remember what it was. And it's much older than that. Anyway, so he flies out. We drive back. We get into Yosemite National Park, and the axle breaks. We're like, okay, this is 2002, so it's not like you're just hopping on like rockauto.com and ordering. So we ended up dropping the car off at the facility that fixes the bulldozers, and they were going to fix the car, and they gave us the emergency camping spot. So we got unscheduled Yosemite prime camping for free.
Impossible.
And we just got to go. I got to go hike around Yosemite with my grandfather.
If you don't know this, that stuff's like booked like 3 years out.
It was amazing. It was absolutely incredible experience that I got to spend with my grandfather, and it never would have happened if we would have just flown home.
That's true.
Yeah, and it's take this slow. I mean, there's so much hyperbole out there and cliche things that you can say about just go as slow as you can in your life, because the older you get, the faster it goes, as we all know.
And we're rapidly aging.
Yeah. We all are. Every day is one day closer to death, right? As the song says.
Yeah.
And just, if you go out in these lonely places, everything slows down.
You're absolutely right.
It is the driving version of sitting on your porch in Mississippi watching the wind blow through the trees. It is the driving version of that.
All of those national parks, my family and I and my spouse, we go out there at least once a year, and it really changes your perspective on life when you go out there. It really does. And I'm not a very spiritual person by any means, but you feel really connected to like just human life and like nature, and you feel immersed in it when you're out there and you're hiking around or you're moving around and you're just in it. You just feel like a better person.
You do. And it's a lot of self-reflection, right? You go through your day every day and you look at your screen time on your phone, and we're all guilty of it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. All these places don't have cell phone service. You're forced. If you're alone, most people, I would guarantee that probably 50% of the population spends almost no time alone.
I agree.
And I can't impress upon you enough of what that does for you, getting to know yourself in these places.
Yep.
It's really special.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm beating it to death, I know.
No.
But get out there.
No, but it's such a great thing because you live it, so it's the gospel, but it really is. You live it, you breathe it, and it's important to hear. Like, I'm glad that you came on, and you're a passionate person, and it comes through when you speak about it, and I love that about you. That's one of my favorite things about you is that you wear your emotions on your sleeve, and, like, I can relate to that.
You can't have stories if you don't explore.
That's right. Yeah. What else are we except a collection of stories that we accumulate through the years?
That's right. It's memories, man. If you don't make any memories, what are you at the end of the day? Just an empty soul? What, you made a bag of money and you have no memories? What does it matter?
That's exactly right. So take the slow road.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. Don't want to take too much more of your time. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so
stuff.
much for having me on and helping me spread the word about how awesome driving around is.
Of course, man. Like it really is. And you're an inspiration, I think, for a lot of people in general, as far as like getting out and just being adventurous. And then addition to add to the icing on the cake with the Porsche world, as you know, there's so many people that just want to live in a bubble.
Right.
And
it's because it's risky. It is risky, but it is. It's okay.
But it's worth the juice, right?
Yeah, the juice is worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome,
I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take care,
guys.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of P-Car Talk. Connect with us on Instagram at P-Car Talk or online at pcartalk.com.